Greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union, and welcome to another episode of Live Free TV. We're getting very close to the November the 5th, 2024 election cycle, and here in the state of Texas, early voting will start on October the 21st. So please, whatever state that you're in, I know that some states have already started early voting. I believe Pennsylvania is one of them. Get out and vote. Get out and vote in this early period, and then your responsibility is to get other people out to vote. But without a doubt, two people I want you to focus on are our military members who are deployed, perhaps away from their place of registration for voting. Make sure that you call and contact them about submitting their absentee ballot. Make sure that they have requested it. And I've already heard some people saying that drill sergeants and other people saying, you don't have time for this voting thing. Yeah, you do, to make sure we don't have a woke military. So please, they have voting officers and many of the units in the military, not political commissars yet, but voting officers. And those people are supposed to make sure that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Space Guardians, they get their proper absentee ballot documentation done. The other people that I want you to pay attention to, in the American Constitutional Rights Union has a great program called the Center for Vulnerable Voters. Without a doubt, we have some concerns about how the left is abusing our seniors in these care facilities and also memory care facilities. Found it kind of interesting. I think it was 4 years ago in Racine, Washington, where we saw people in a memory care center voting 100%. These are people that have some very difficult abilities to remember what day it is. And so we have a website, we have a link called the Center for Vulnerable Voters. If you see something that is very nefarious, please contact us at the American Constitutional Rights Union Center for Vulnerable Voters so that we can protect our loved ones. And if you do have a loved one that is in a care facility or a memory care facility, please check on them and make sure that they are not being coerced into voting, and that if they cannot vote, no one is filling out a ballot for them. And with that being said, let's talk about where we are going into these final weeks of this election cycle. I found it very interesting recently when Kamala Harris was on The View, that show that not too many people watch. I don't know. But anyhow, she was sitting there and a question was posed to her from Whoopi Goldberg, if I'm correct. And it was, if you could go back and do something different, because you are in this current administration. I don't care how much you talk about turning a page and things of this nature. This is the Biden-Harris administration. As a matter of fact, Vice President Harris has said that she's been a part of every major decision. She was there, last person in the room after the Afghanistan debacle. So Whoopi Goldberg asked her that simple question, and Kamala Harris replied, I have no regrets. So we're supposed to believe that this is a new person. We're supposed to believe this is some change candidate when she has been the vice president of these United States of America for the past 3.5, almost 4 years. And she has no regrets for the things that have been going on. But yet she's supposed to be someone new. And really, when you think about it, I mean, you listen to the rhetoric, the economic plan. Well, we're going to make the billionaires pay their fair share. How many times have we heard that? We're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's just a rehash. It's the exact same things. And furthermore, if there was something different that she wanted to do, then why haven't you done it? But I want to quickly go over this whole no regrets thing, because I want you to think about this. In other words, Kamala Harris has no regret for the economic situation in which we find ourselves in the United States of America. And let's hear the facts. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the great Democrat senator from New York, said that you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. And so the facts are that they took over an inflation rate. They took over an economy that had a 1.4% inflation rate, 6% GDP growth. Fact. And what did they do with that? And I know some people are going to say, well, the inflation rate was because of the Russia invading Ukraine. It was 7.1% before Russia crossed and went into Ukraine. It hit an all-time high of 9.1%. Now, you got to really work hard to take the rate of inflation from 1.4% to 9.1%. And you also kind of got to be economically stupid But that's exactly what they did. That's exactly the policies of the leftists. That's exactly the policies of Biden Harris, for which she has no regrets whatsoever. So, in other words, they had no problems putting their boot on the neck of our oil and gas industry, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. One of the very first things they did. But yet they supported Russia's pipeline that went into Western Europe. So why would you do that? Because furthermore, what you have done, I mean, you put the boot on our oil and gas industry, which means goods and services are going to cost more because they have to be transported. And that's why we see this year over year inflation since they came in is really 20 to 25%. And there are some commodities out there that are up 32% or more. Electricity costs are up. You know about bacon, you know about eggs, you know about those basic staples, you know about gasoline. But the interesting thing is that they put the kibosh on our oil and gas industry, but yet they freely allow Russia and Iran. They took the boot off of Iran with the sanctions. Donald Trump had Iran economically bankrupt. You didn't hear about Houthis, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah. You didn't hear about those entities. What you did hear about was General Qasem Soleimani, who was the head of the Quds Force, which is a designated terrorist organization. He got smoked by the Trump administration. ISIS, that was a child birth during the Obama-Biden administration, when Barack Obama decided he was going to completely withdraw all troops out of Iraq, created a vacuum there. Joe Biden said that that would go down as one of the great decisions, foreign policy, national security decisions ever. As Bill Gates said, Joe Biden has always found himself on the wrong side of every major foreign policy decision. He found himself there. So ISIS came about. But what happened in the Trump administration? Al-Baghdadi, smoked. And now we're supposed to believe that all of this turmoil that we see in this Biden-Harris administration is Donald Trump's fault. The economic situation is Donald Trump's fault. Or if you listen to Kamala Harris, it's because we're price gouging. Nobody is intentionally raising prices. The only people that are intentionally raising prices is the Biden-Harris administration. And they're doing that under the guy, she has no regrets. Look at, like I said, the national security situation. We are not meeting our recruiting and retention levels in our United States military. And I served 22 years in a volunteer army, a volunteer military, all volunteers. We didn't have any problems with recruiting and retention. As a matter of fact, I remember after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, we had a RIF, reduction in force. We put people out of the military. We probably shouldn't have done that because, you know, every time we do that, the world becomes a more volatile place. But that was under the Clinton administration. But the thing that we have to start looking at is, why do we want someone to be in charge of our country that has no regrets for the debacle that is occurring in our country and in the world? Our economy, our energy, our national security, our foreign policy. You know, I found it interesting that, you know, Vice President Harris wants to tout herself with some type of diplomatic bona fides when she says she went over there and she was talking with Ukrainian President Zelensky. And what, 72 hours later, Russia came across the border? Okay, way to go. You really showed them how tough you are. And Iran? Yeah, okay, they're laughing. China? Really laughing. And now we see the rise of Islamic jihadism and terrorism, which leads to the other thing that she has no regrets about, obviously, and that's the border insecurity. Yes, she was put in charge of that. She was supposed to have that in her portfolio, but yet she did nothing about it. But she has no regrets about it. She has no regrets about the fact that we have 300,000 unaccompanied minors that are missing in the United States of America. Just release the people that nobody's tracking them. We have human and sex slavery that are at all-time highs in just these 3.5 years. We've lost 250,000, 250,000 Americans in 3.5 years to a chemical warfare initiated by China with a chemical called fentanyl. 250,000. And as I continue to reiterate, we lost 37,000 in the entire Korean War. We lost 58,000 in the entire Vietnam War. We lost 250,000 because of the policies that emanated from the Biden-Harris administration when they reversed, by way of executive order, some 93 or 94 actions to open up our border, which is unconstitutional. You want to talk about an impeachable offense. You want to talk about a high crime and misdemeanor. You want to talk about a violation of our Constitution. But yet she has no regrets about it. Think about Laken Riley. Think about Jocelyn Nungare, the 12-year-old girl that was strangled and killed by illegal immigrants. The mother of five, 37-year-old mother out of Maryland. She has no regrets about that. Or even consider the fact that now we have violent Venezuelan illegal immigrant gangs, single military age males here in this country, going around and taking over apartment buildings. She has no regrets about that. 425,000 illegal immigrant criminals in the United States of America, which includes some 25 to 30,000 murderers and rapists. She has no regrets about it. And we're supposed to say, oh, yeah, we want you to be the head of this country. A person that talked about defunding ICE, a person that went out and raised money for violent protesters that had burned Minneapolis to the ground. No, by the way, she chooses someone to be vice president with her, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who, oh, by the way, when you talk about economics, Minnesota has the highest state corporate tax rate in the country, 9.8%. They have the sixth highest personal income tax rate. They tax corporations and their profits from overseas. But Tim Walz sat there, and while Minneapolis was burning to the ground, and the mayor of Minneapolis asked for National Guard support, Tim Walz asked, well, do you know if they've had diversity training? So basically, he is a present-day Emperor Nero who fiddled while he watched a city burn. You know, by the way, I guess his wife kind of likes the smell of burning tires. Maybe she's kind of like Robert Duvall in, what was that, Apocalypse Now? I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory. Wonder what she thought smelling burning tires. What did it inspire her to believe? And don't even get me started about the stolen valor thing with Tim Walz. But she has no regrets about anything. But that's who we supposedly are going to be voting for. I just want to ask people out there, when I see a Harris Walz sign, in front of a house, the old colonel's kind of tempted to go up there and knock on the door and say, can you just tell me what you're voting for? I mean, economically, our energy, our foreign policy, national security, domestic security. Just tell me, help me to understand, what are you voting for? Don't tell me what you're voting against. Don't tell me about Orange Man bad. And I guarantee you that if you ask these people what are they voting for, they couldn't tell you. Are they voting for joy? Well, let me tell you something. I got some joy just recently when Tennessee beat Florida in overtime in a football game because I was really nervous about it. I don't need Kamala Harris to give me joy. I have a great wife. I have a couple of super daughters. I have great sons-in-law. I have two fantastic grandsons. I get joy in being with my family. What I want is someone that's going to honor the Constitution and protect us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't want someone that's going to give me joy. So ask your friends out there, what are you voting for? Because I guarantee you the woman here in Dallas, Texas, who was followed home by 4 Hispanic males, she was beaten, forced to take them into her home, where they threatened to torture her by cutting off her fingers. They beat her even more, and they ransacked and stole many items out of her house. They were captured a few days later, or like a week or so. All 4 of them members of the Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang, which focuses on sex trafficking of young girls and women. Now, that happened right here in Dallas. But I guess Kamala Harris has no regret about that. Or she has no regrets about the Tren de Aragua member who was caught trying to recruit members into Houston, Harris County schools. No regrets about that. So what are you voting for? Because, another one of the members of The View, Sonny Hostin, just recently came out and said that Kamala Harris is running a flawless campaign. Flawless. No mistake. Everything's good. I think what Kamala Harris is doing very well is she's regurgitating very well rehearsed lines. And I always find it interesting when they have like 3 or 4 different venues where she's speaking and she's always saying the exact same thing. So now some people will say, hey, Colonel, she's being consistent. She's staying on message. Not when you're repeating everything word for word for word. That's rehearsing a line. I was born a middle-class child in a very manicured neighborhood. Well, as far as I know, she grew up in Montreal or someplace like that. But it does remind me of that movie, The Jerk, with Steve Martin, where he says, I was born a poor black child in Mississippi. Every time she says it, that's what I think about. And that has become the ultimate tagline, the ultimate humor line for her. So she's not running a flawless campaign. And you know why you know that she's not running a flawless campaign? Because Barack Obama is out there and he is absolutely angry.
Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. Mm-hmm. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. And so now you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down. That's not acceptable. We have not yet seen
not acceptable.
The same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. When you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences. Who's had to work harder and do more.
Now, I'm a black man. I know that there was a young lady at Northwestern University, you can still pull down this clip off YouTube, that asked me if I identified as black. I have no clue what that young girl was talking about, but that's part of that foolishness that our kids are being taught. But the interesting thing is that Barack Obama is in Pennsylvania, I believe Philadelphia, chastising black men for not voting. Oh, brothers. The problem is with the brothers, as he said. And maybe you guys aren't ready for a woman to be president. No, that's not the case. People went out and voted for him because hope and change. You know, that false emotional rhetoric, just kind of like joy, forward, which is a communist term. But anyhow, you look at this and you say, no. Me voting for someone is not about my skin color. Although Joe Biden has already told me that, well, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That's what he said. What a disgusting, despicable, condescending, and offensive thing to say. So why is it with the left, everything has to be about your skin color or levels of estrogen and testosterone, which of course on the left, they have very little testosterone. But black men who are fleeing from Kamala Harris in droves, they're not concerned about her being a black woman. Furthermore, I thought the left couldn't really define what a woman was. That's what Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she struggled with that. She said, I'm really not into biology. I didn't study biology. But it's very simple. It's just about your anatomy. It's about your DNA. It's about your chromosomes. But black men, yours truly included, each and every one of us has a brain. We can think for ourselves. And when we do the evaluation of all the issues that we're facing, Kamala Harris going out and promising black men that she will legalize marijuana at the federal level. Really? Do you think that's the most important thing for black men is to smoke weed? Saying that she's going to give you up to $1 million of forgivable loans. So in other words, just free money, American taxpayer money. I'm just going to buy your vote. I'm going to focus on the health problems of black men. Well, mainly black men need to eat better and exercise more. I'm 63. I still get up 6 days out of the week and do my Army PT, physical training. So we don't need her making these empty promises. What black men, white men, Asian men, Hispanic men, everybody in the United States of America, except for those people that are, for whatever reason, delusional and deranged, are concerned about is their safety and security. They're concerned about being able to provide for their families food, shelter, transportation. They're concerned about better educational opportunities for their children, not to be relegated to failed schools because certain people want to placate and pander to teachers' unions more so than focus on our children, their education, not indoctrination. The bottom line is that there are people in this country that understand what it means to be steadfast and loyal. And I think that in this election cycle, the left is going to be very surprised at that number when the results of this election comes out. Always remember, if you want to live free, then vote for freedom. And oh, by the way, free stuff never equals freedom. Steadfast and loyal.